Tears of the Kingdom added a lot of horns to its game, and these horns added a lot of new attacks the enemies can use. So I thought we could go over each one and see what each horn adds. Let's start with new attacks. That actually mean a lot more than just enemies stronger now, as it gives a lore reason for the new horns. In Breath of the Wild, all enemies shared the same horn type. But now, with the stronger horns powered by Gloom, they're able to use them in combat. So let's see what the new attacks bring to the table. But before that, I first need to explain the two types of attacks an enemy can do. There are sidestep attacks, where Link will have to dodge to the side to dodge. These attacks are like stabs or vertical swings. Then there are backflip attacks, where the player needs to dodge backwards, aka do a backflip, to dodge the attack. These are mostly swings. Most enemies will have a mix of these attacks, some being sidestep, some being backflip. Let's take the Breath of the Wild Lizalfo. They have their tail whip attack, which Link needs to backflip. And then they have their tongue attack, which aside from making gross people happy, Link needs to dodge sideways to avoid. This gives Link at least two attacks that he needs to look at in order to dodge correctly, forcing the player to see what attack the enemy does. Starting with the Bokoblin, they'll do what everyone wants to do, where they will run headfirst right into Link's junk. This gives the pig thing somewhat of a ranged attack, as they'll use it more so for range, to close distance. This attack is a sidestep attack, being more like a stab. Moving on to the Bokoblin's management, the boss Bokoblin has the same attack. Yeah, they're basically just bigger Bokoblins when without the squad, so, same thing, sidestep. Now, for the Bokoblin's bigger, dumber brother is the Moblin. They will do what I do after spending days on a video that no one watches, where they will scream in the air before slamming their head face first into the ground. This too is a sidestep attack, and their scream is a clear sign that they're about to do it. Fun fact, all these free, if unarmed, will only do sidestep attacks, so keep that in mind. However, that does not go for our next enemy, the Horriblin. The Horriblin will do as its buddy the Moblin and recreate the Greenman video making process, slamming their head in the ground, hoping to turn Link into a pancake. However, unlike the last free, if unarmed, their normal swipe attack is a backflip attack, while their horn is a sidestep. Meaning that, if unarmed, they can do both attacks and force Link to dodge right. Is what I would say if they didn't cling to the damn ceiling 24/7, and they hide in their caves like Discord mods, so you never get to get them on the ground, and they really get to do their attack. Instead, just staying on the ceiling and throwing their balls at you like they're Johnny Sins. Moving to the last of the basic enemies, Lizalfos will do multiple swipes with their horn, matching their more agile nature. This is the first attack that will be a backflip attack. However, they already have their tail and tongue, so it doesn't really matter. However, they also have elemental versions of these guys, and their horns are powered by said element, which gives Link the same element. Fire will set Link on fire, ice will freeze Link, and lightning will force Link to drop his weapons and stun him. And seeing as these are the first that have a unique fuse, you might as well start talking about that. Fusing any other horn will just make it hit harder, but with the elemental weapons, it'll make Link hit the enemy with that same element. Fire sets them on fire, ice freezes them, and lightning shocks, stuns, and makes them drop their weapons. This won't work on enemies of the same element. Staying on elemental enemies, the Gleeoks only come in elemental form, other than the King Gleeok, but that's just 3 elements in one. Now, Gleeok's a ranged enemy, therefore they don't have a horn attack, as they treat Link the same way P. Diddy treats his pants when on the playground, staying away as far as possible, and doing what they can to stay away. But fear not, lore lookers, as their horns seem to be the source of their elemental power, as when fused to a weapon, they will fire their element endlessly, meaning that one of Ganon's goons that is just made of his gloom is better than, spoiler alert, a dragon powered by a secret stone. Oh yeah! For the 3 main elemental dragons, it's just a better Lizalfo horn, doing more damage. However, the light dragon will do less damage, most likely to fit with how the rest of its body parts deal less damage. But where its real power comes is with its healing, as it will heal Link for 1/4 of a heart every time you hit. You can also use these horns in cooking to make super meals. I'm not talking about elixirs because that's just kind of a whole monster part theme instead of just a horn theme. Just make sure to add 1 horn and a bug and you'll get your effect. But also, back on the meal theme with the dragon horns, you can technically eat Zelda. Before going to talk about Lionels and the Hinoxes, let's talk about the robots. The normal droid will spin their head, and considering that when unarmed they spin their arms to attack, it kind of looks like they enter dance mode. One cool thing, again, if unarmed, they will only do backflip attacks, which means they're basically the opposite of the bokoblins. Also, their horns cannot be made in elixirs or meals. They are only good for fusing. As for their captains, as far as I can tell, they don't have a horn attack. But seeing as they're clankers, it could be that their horns are more so made for looking cool rather than actually being useful. Alright, let's move on. Next up is my dad. These big boys will slam their horn into the ground, but they do it pretty rarely. What is cool is that their horn is the same across all 3 types, but it's the material that covers said horn that's different. I'll talk about horn design later, but these are pretty different, so let's do it now. Red Hinoxes will have simple wood. Blue ones will have chains around them. I did not know they're into BDSM after their naps. And the ones that can say the N-word will have just debris. The only Cyclops with a different horn, as in not just rapping, is the boner. See, most spooky, scary skeletons have less health than Biden, so they drop the standard horn. But Hinoxes have a milkman that does not die by a gust of wind, so they got a new horn, which is just 3 skulls on it. And it gets a damage boost if you have bone power. Last up are Lionels. They actually have 2 horns, mace horns and stabber horns. They rise up kicking their legs like they're a 5-year-old before trying to cut Link in half like a Lego. Now this is the signal, most important attack they add, and I'll explain why. See, in Breath of the Wild there were 3 types of furries: sword and shield, spear, and club. Club Lionels are the best, at least if you ask me, because they have a good range of attacks. A sidestep attack, which if dodged too late will hit Link anyways. Multiple sidestep attacks which will make it look like he's trying to destroy the ground. And a twirl that Link needs to backflip twice or parry. Sword and shield Lionels are similar, but they only have backflip attacks, so the player only has to have Link backflip in order to the point where he's about to throw up. Spear Lionels, however, don't have any unique attack aside from their dive, but it's more of a ranged one. So if you get close range, they don't have any attack to do except for their firestorm, which is more like a get the f*** off rather than a real attack, which makes the lawn stick Lionels more of a hit and run, which I'm fine with, but it's dumb they never hold their ground. But with the new horn attack, they don't use clubs anymore. The spin twin dudes don't get much, but it's nice that they have a standard backflip attack. But who really wins here are the Speary boys, who now have a way to stand their ground without crying like a baby and forcing Link to run away. This means they can get some hits in before they go back to their hit and run. But sadly, the sword and stabby plate ones are way worse because they still don't have a sidestep attack. They just have free backflip attacks. Their only sidestep attack they have is when they pull a furry, get on all limbs, and charge right at Link's attack. Why is everything focused on Link's attack? Back to Lionels, they just force you to backflip your brains out, which, I don't know, kinda sucks. Speaking of sucks, let's talk about the horn's design. Let me start by saying I don't think any of the horns look bad in a vacuum, but when put together, it just gets stupid. Let's start with the good. I think the new enemies generally have good horns. I think the Horriblins is what the horns should try and look like. The normal one has a hammer-like look, and the colored Stronder versions look like a Stronder upgraded version of the base horn. I already talked about the Hinox, but the other boss, Gleeok, all look the same, being a crown-like look. The only weird thing is that they cost different, even though all other elemental horns cost the same. Speaking of bosses, boss bokoblins have a horn that starts to look like a sword, then an axe, then a double axe, and lastly, this kind of sharp snop snapsma. Now let's look at the base boko. Red has a simple horn, blue has 2, and black has 3, and they all look similar to the boss variant, just being a smaller version. All good, makes sense. But when we get to the silver pig man, they say, screw this, let's give him an anglerfish looking horn. And they do. It doesn't mix with the rest, and it doesn't even look sharp. It looks like a toy you would play with your cat. And when it gets worse with the moblin. Red, black, and silver to an extent look fine, but blue looks completely different. And the lizards are even worse. Green, black, fire, ice, and lightning all look as they should, better versions of the green. But blue has this weird lawn sword, and the silver... What even happened here? But all of these pale in comparison to the worst, Lionels. First are the saber horns. Red, blue-maned, and white-maned look great. The main Lionels look like a better version of the base, and look somewhat like the swords from Breath of the Wild, which is a cool callback. But then Silver takes a play out of the Blue Lizalfo's playbook and says, hey, let's give it a samurai-looking sword. Out of nowhere. And then the mace horns, Red looks like it has 3 sharp points hitting into a target. Silver looks like a tree branch. And with the main Lynels, it looks like a rib cage. And the worst part, red and silver Lynels replace the whole weapon. If you don't know, some fuses such as rocks, wood, miscellaneous items, and some horns will simply attach to the tip, while other weapons such as bokoblin horns will replace the weapon itself, leaving just the handle of the sword. But the damn main Lynels will just go to the tip. Why? Why do the base Lynels and the god Lynels replace the weapon, but the main ones don't? Why? Why? Well, I hope you enjoyed this deep dive of horns and Tears of the Kingdom. I just wanted to show some new attacks the enemies got, and also rant about how the new horns look, as in, like, design-wise. Oh yeah, we gotta make a thumbnail. Okay, all done. So here we got Link and Zelda, and they're blushing a bit because, you know, they're embarrassed they don't have horns. I mean, who isn't? We all wish we could have horns. And we'll blur the horn in the middle. No spoilers, of course. And that's some quotation marks around sleeping because we know Link's not sleeping. He's researching horns with us. A little wink because we know what he's doing. He's looking up horns just like we are. Oh,